are checking out the new Samsung Galaxy S25 Ultra. Out of the three S25s, this is the one everyone seems to be talking about. It's pretty much the case every year, but this year especially. Still the biggest, the most expensive, the highest spec with all the features, but it's been met with a tiny bit of controversy this year thanks to a change, some people may even call it a downgrade, to the S Pen, this phone's key feature. I'm of course going to touch on that and everything else you need to know, but first things first, let's just quickly unbox this phone and then we can get into all the dirty details. So sliding off the lid, you're immediately greeted by the phone itself. This color here is the titanium blue-gray, which is one of the 4 standard color options this year. There's also titanium white-silver, titanium regular gray, I guess, and titanium black, which are all pretty subtle muted metallic finishes. If you want something slightly more interesting, there's 3 other Samsung.com exclusives: titanium jade green, titanium pink gold, and titanium jet black. As far as what else comes inside the box, well, not much of course. Hiding in the lid there, you'll find the usual packet of things: the SIM ejector tool, a fat stack of paperwork and instructions, and your lonely USB-C to USB-C cable for charging. Here is the S25 Ultra once again, and as we get it fully unwrapped and powered on, I want to talk about pricing because there's still ways you can save a lot of money if you're buying this phone, which I'd imagine you'd want to do considering its price point. On the bright side, Samsung didn't increase the price of any of the S25s this year, but this S25 Ultra still starts at a whopping $1,300, and that's for the 256GB model, mind you. Now, Samsung is still offering a free storage upgrade, which I highly recommend you opt for. It's sort of a no-brainer, and you'll still get some Samsung credit to use towards cases and other discounted accessories. Honestly though, I'd probably just recommend some third-party accessories instead, more on that in a moment. And if you have your old smartphone, Samsung will also give you a little more money for it if you trade it in towards the S25 Ultra. So using their convoluted discounts and trade-in promotions, you could theoretically get a 512GB S25 Ultra for as low as $399 if you have last year's S24 Ultra to trade in, and you can still spend $80 free on something from the Samsung store. Perhaps this Minions Galaxy Buds case and a spare charging set. I'll leave some links down below in the video description if you want to shop around or see if you can come up with your own deal for this phone, but it seems like this year, Samsung is really pushing these pre-order promotions pretty hard, and to be honest, what they're offering isn't too bad at all. If you do wind up getting this phone, I have 2 accessories from ESR, this video's sponsor, that I'd highly recommend you get as well. The first is their new Halo Lock Classic Hybrid case. I have both the clear and the frosted black, and not only are these more affordable than Samsung's cases, but they're better in a few important ways. They fully protect the phone all the way around. An extra corner cushion to absorb the impact of a drop, a 1.2mm raised edge around the screen to help keep it protected from scratches, and a camera guard to ensure those all-important camera lenses are safe too. Best of all, there's a super strong MagSafe style magnetic ring on the back that you can pair with ESR's entire lineup of charging accessories, like this one, their Qi 2 certified 15-watt MagSafe car mount charger with Cryo Boost. You have 2 ways to mount this in your car, either clipped onto an air vent like I have, or by sticking this ball joint attachment to your dashboard. The charging stand can be tilted and turned in almost any direction, so you can set your phone to the perfect angle, and most importantly, it can juice up the S25 Ultra at its highest supported speeds, 15 watts, thanks to not just its Qi 2 certification, but also its Cryo Boost technology, a built-in phone cooling fan that ensures safer, cooler, and more reliable charging at those fastest speeds. And oh yeah, when you're on the road, this big old phone isn't falling off. The case and charger's magnets combine with 1,600 grams of force, so it's holding in place no matter how awful of a driver you are. These accessories are honestly a lot better than what Samsung wants you to buy from them, so click the links in the video description below to check out all of ESR's new S25 Ultra offerings. So what's new with the S25 Ultra? Well, it's bigger. Couldn't you tell? At least the screen is, slightly so. It's now 6.9 inches, nice. but the form factor isn't really any larger. In fact, Samsung slimmed down the bezels ever so slightly to get most of that extra tenth of an inch of screen increase, and they also rounded off the phone's corners to more closely resemble the other two S25s. It's a less sharp, less unique looking Ultra this year, but I think there's still plenty of other ways you can tell this is Samsung's top tier phone. The front and back are now covered in an all new Gorilla Glass Armor 2 material. I hope I don't ever have to test out its strength, but it should be stronger and the screen should show a little less glare. The sides are also still titanium, a grade 5 now, whatever that means, and these materials are still reserved only for the Ultra. So you still get a more premium build with new fancy materials compared to the cheaper regular S25s. Taking a quick look around at everything else, nothing on the left side besides the 5G antenna. On the right, the same power buttons and volume buttons as always. Up top, a couple little microphone holes, and at the bottom, the S Pen of course, the main loudspeaker, the USB-C port, and the SIM card tray. Aside from moving that pinhole away from one of the microphone holes, thankfully, the physical SIM card slot remains unchanged. No expandable storage, which means I'm stuck with just 256 gigabytes of space on my phone unless I want to utilize some cloud storage that Samsung is heavily pushing. I feel like storage space is more and more valuable nowadays, especially since Android takes up a bunch up front and Samsung pre-installs like 20 different apps now, so definitely opt for that free storage upgrade I talked about earlier if you still can. The in-display fingerprint sensor is still the same, just as fast. And speaking of the display, aside from that new glass that's covering it, Samsung kept the exact same screen setup from last year. The tiny bit of extra size, I guess, is a change if you want to call it that, but the LTPO AMOLED panel is the same. The adaptive 120Hz refresh rate is the same, and the 1440 QHD resolution you can select in settings is the same too. Samsung also didn't opt for increasing the brightness either, 2600 nits, just like last year, so the display, I guess, wasn't a focus or of any real concern this time around. On the one hand, I can understand that. I mean, I think this is the best smartphone display on the market. It's big, it's colorful, it's bright, and even though I can't see the Quad HD resolution with the naked eye, I'm glad I have it because this is an Ultra phone, the Ultra phone, and it's supposed to have ultra over-the-top specs across the board, whether I use them or understand them or not. With that being said, and I talked about this in my regular S25 unboxing, but keeping something the same as the previous year tells me that Samsung also thinks this is the best display for at least 2 years now. That could be the case, I guess, but they could also bump the refresh rate to 144 Hz. They could crank up the brightness even more. Arguably, they could probably make the screen even bigger still. I'm not saying all these are necessary, but other phones have a couple higher screen specs here and there. And again, whether people use them or need them or understand them, I think being the Ultra phone should mean that no other phone outspecs this one in any way. Just some food for thought. Okay, so let's talk S Pen. Now, obviously, the S25 Ultra still has its built-in S Pen, and it's very similar in form and function to last year's and all the previous years, really. It's a great stylus experience for writing, drawing, and tapping through the phone. It's a great set of apps and features that pair with it. It's one of the most unique smartphone features and sort of the defining feature for this phone at this point. I mean, without this S Pen, I don't think there'd be any real reason to have 3 different S25s. But Samsung removed Bluetooth support from the S Pen and thus also removed air gestures. An S Pen feature they say less than 1% of customers actually used. And with that alleged data, I can understand where they're coming from. If it cuts costs or allows for them to add something else instead, so be it. But Samsung seemingly didn't add anything in place of air gestures. The stylus doesn't have any other new physical features or apps or other add-ons, and it obviously didn't bring the price of the phone down any. On top of all that, in recent teardown videos, it seems like some of the old S Pen related hardware parts for Bluetooth and charging are still inside the S25 Ultra, so they just made the S Pen itself cheaper with less tech and used old smartphone parts from previous years. It's a strange situation and seems like an unnecessary change when there are probably plenty of other features that 1% of users use, like 8K recording or the new log video format. Now, I realize that most of what I've talked about with the S25 Ultra isn't really anything new, just subtle changes here and there. And that's because most of what's actually new that Samsung has been talking about with the entire S25 lineup has to do with software, AI, and the overall performance. Inside, these S25s are now powered by a special Qualcomm Snapdragon 8 Elite chip that's specifically optimized for Samsung. The performance numbers are really up there, and the speed and performance increases that Qualcomm has been stating are huge promises for sure. The supposed speed boosts likely won't be felt while you're scrolling through social media, but the S25 Ultra for me the last few days has felt quite fast. Most of that excess performance capability is intended for all the new One UI 7 and Galaxy AI features that Samsung is all in on. Galaxy AI is now even more incorporated with an Android 15 and not just being utilized by Samsung's apps, but also some Google apps and other third-party apps too. Gemini is also a lot smarter and can complete multi-step tasks across different apps, and there are admittedly some very useful new AI features like updated circle to search, which now works with songs you hear playing. AI Select as a whole has a lot of new powerful features. Object Eraser has been getting a lot of attention as being better than Apple's, and Best Face is fun to use when you have a group of yahoos who blink in every picture. So all this stuff is where you'll experience what's truly new with the S25 series. And that's great if you're a software fiend, but I would guess that most, if not all of this stuff is probably coming to the S24 and likely some other Galaxy devices this year. So that sort of just leaves the potential performance as an actual hardware upgrade. And is it an upgrade? Well, maybe if you're a top 1% mobile gamer, you'll feel it most, but we already talked about that whole 1% of users thing, so I'll just let that lie for now. As far as battery and charging, well, this really wasn't changed either. The 5000 milliamp hour battery is the same size, and it's getting the same 45 watt wired charging speeds as last year, with 15 watt wireless charging as an option as well. And when it comes to the cameras, well, surprisingly, these didn't get much of an upgrade either. Around back, Samsung stuck with the same 200 megapixel main lens and 50 megapixel periscope telephoto lens, but they did introduce an all-new 50 megapixel ultra-wide lens to this phone. The selfie camera seems to be the same 12 megapixel shooter up front, and inside the camera app, well, we'll have to test out that new ultra-wide lens for sure, and Samsung says they put a big emphasis on improving low light and nighttime video by reducing noise and enhancing detail, so again, TBD on that. There is that new log video format for filmmakers that 1% of users will, you know what, never mind. That's new via the Expert RAW download. And Samsung added an audio eraser add-on, so you can cancel out background noise or wind noise in your videos, which honestly is probably the most useful camera addition to them all. I'm of course looking forward to putting this camera to the test in the coming weeks to see how it stacks up. I guess I'm just surprised to see that Samsung seems to have peaked when it comes to camera hardware and features. It was a fast and furious race to the top in recent years, but I suppose we've stalled out for now. The S25 Ultra, I think, is probably not meant for S24 users. I mean, Samsung has said that themselves. They don't expect people to upgrade every single year. So I feel like I shouldn't even ask if you're upgrading from an S24 device, but if you have something older, is this S25 Ultra enticing enough for you to finally get something new? Or are you waiting for some more substantial hardware or design changes? Or maybe some features or add-ons they still haven't gotten to? Let me know in the comments down below. I'd love to hear your thoughts, of course. Hopefully you guys did enjoy this video though. Be sure to follow Tech Daily on Twitter and subscribe to the Tech Daily YouTube channel if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys later.